I'm here with Walter Koenig on the set of Star Trek Renegades. Walter, thank you so much for coming in today.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate it. So, yeah, we got you for a few minutes. Let's ask a couple questions. First off, how are you? How's life?
Okay. I'm always concerned and wary about saying it's good, because then I know the roof is going to fall in,
Yeah, exactly. Murphy's Law. So, how long have you been involved with Star Trek Renegades?
Well, not very long. In an active manner, I'd say, other than having once read it once and then putting it aside, waiting for them to raise the money, I've only been involved for about a week.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you read the script and you liked it, and...
Well, I read the script. I felt that everything can use improvement.
Yeah.
And I certainly thought this was ripe for that being done. And I think, and I hasten to add that I think a lot of that has been accomplished. That it is a significantly better piece of work than it was the first draft that I read.
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's some revisions. Now, you're obviously an expert on Star Trek. You've been with Star Trek for a very long time. It wearing the Star Trek name, do you feel like it is indeed a Star Trek piece? Or do you think it expands in a different way than, say, some of the shows and the movies? Or does it operate within that kind of...
Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure that I can be totally objective about that.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly, there are aspects to this film that distinguish it from the others. It's a much more the action is much more graphic. They've been using the logo, "This is not your grandfather's Star Trek." My only concern is, can your grandfather's Star Treks buy it? Because it's as I say, it's violent, and it's graphically violent. There are a lot of characters that certainly no one has seen before, which is probably advantageous. There's some there's some flavor of the original Star Trek, and some sense of what the original Star Trek was about. I mean, there's some feeling of what Gene Roddenberry was looking for when he conceived this whole notion, this whole idea. In fact, there was a couple of lines that were going to be cut out, and I said to Sky, I said, these lines absolutely connect to the original Star Trek more than anything else in this film, and they are the social political aspect of this film. When Chekov says, "Now that we've gone this far, where do you draw the line? How far is too far?" And that totally relates to our present world.
Yeah.
And I thought, of all the dialogue in the script, that is essential to. First of all, it brands it as a Star Trek film, and it is essential to our concern for what happens and for to whom it happens.
Right, kind of the ethical kind of dilemmas of raising these ethical questions has been kind of Star Trek's job.
It's not a picture that that rests on philosophical ideas, which is just as well. I mean, you need to have action, and you need to have stuff happening, but I felt that was entirely essential to making this movie, to putting it into that world, into that kind of world that inspired the original movies.
Mm-hmm. How was it to play Chekov again? Is it fun?
It was okay. It was okay. I mean, I didn't consciously say I'm 143 years old. I didn't go for anything like that. I liked the idea that I got to emote a little bit. That it wasn't just where I'm just saying out loud plot words. That define the plot, without having personal feelings. You know, that was mostly the case when we did the series, and to the movies to some extent too. I mean, he has some convictions. Chekov has some convictions, as does everybody else. But it was nice being able to play those convictions.
Yeah, well, could you elaborate on maybe one of his major, character convictions that he has, kind of something he wants or a goal of his in the film for us?
Well, I mean, it's always been there, but it's never really been presented. He is fiercely loyal to the idea of the Federation remaining intact, and that Starfleet is still a virtuous idea, and there's enough threat to that to concern him and to make him want to be actively involved and not letting that happen. So I mean, those were the kinds of attitudes and ideas that were generally left to the captain, in our series and our movies. But here it's pretty much Chekov's responsibility, and I thought that was a good thing.
Yeah, that's really cool. See the character kind of having to, like you said, defend some values that he sees near and dear to him, and being kind of a guardian and sentinel for those values is really cool. So you're getting to see some fusion of some of your most beloved characters in Trek. How is that? Is that fun to kind of have Tuvok and Chekov working together and kind of seeing opposite sides of the canon kind of?
Yeah, but together? We haven't as late as it is in this picture. Tomorrow's the last day. We really haven't had a scene on camera together.
Oh, really?
I mean, I've had words and he's been off camera, and he's had words and I've been off camera. But we still have the scene coming up. It is kind of an interesting scene. It's not that we disagree. It's just that perhaps we have slightly different ways of viewing it. But ultimately we're working together. There's no question about that.
Well, and I'm understanding that this is kind of to try to get some momentum for another series, like a web series, or try to inspire kind of something that starts to be more serial feel. And right now we have the last two, Paramount films that came out in the last few years. But on the series side of the equation, Coin, it's been a little quiet since Enterprise finished in 05 or 06. And so it's cool to see some of these fan projects, and just to know that Star Trek is still such a near and dear thing in people's minds, and I think there's a hunger for this kind of thing. How was it to kind of operate on kind of the web side of the equation as an actor?
Well, it's a camera,
Yeah.
So there's very little difference for me. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that there are accommodations that the director must make, and perhaps even the camera people. But I just say the lines as if it was, Star Trek TV, Star Trek motion pictures.
Right. Cool. Well, I mean, hopefully we'll get to see more of Renegades play out and see more of Chekov. And
well, I just hope that I wouldn't have thought this. I would have thought that I'd be more concerned simply with how good the project is, which is it's an important concern. But I've been with this for so long, and the fan opinion has become, part of the way I think, and I know what they require to make it satisfying for them, and I know there's a certain amount of canon that they sort of insist upon, and I'm talking about fans of all stripe, old, young, scientifically oriented, non-scientifically oriented, and I feel a responsibility to that. I feel a responsibility to make sure that we haven't lost that in making a movie that is approached differently, and it is approached differently in terms of all the action, all the mayhem and the explosions and the pyrotechnics that are used, and that's all very good, and it's all pretty much essential to today's shooting, today's way of shooting. You can't deny that. I just hope that the messages that are there,
Yeah.
subtle as they may be, are still viable and still apparent.
Yeah, I guess finding that balance between the modern vernacular of action and there's obviously the debate with the last two Paramount movies. Is it too much action? Is it too much about the spectacle and not the core of Star Trek? And that's an ongoing debate as well. And I think it's tough with, like you said, something that's gone on for so long, and you wanna breathe new ideas into it. Otherwise, you fall flat because you don't want to just chase after what it was in the past, but then also finding that kind of what makes it Star Trek and what gives it its kind of DNA as Star Trek, and breathing that into the modern kind of style. So
well, we're right between the old Star Trek, primarily the television series, and these new J.J. Abrams movies, insofar as we had very little opportunity to use special effects in the original series. We didn't have the financing, and we didn't have the knowledge. We couldn't do the things that can be done now. So they really leaned on story and relationship. They had to, because they didn't have the dynamics of explosions and extraordinary phenomena occurring. I'm sure that they don't consider it a crutch. They are just, this is the current vernacular. The way they're shooting is a different vernacular, and for this frame of reference, they've done an exceptional job. They're very, very entertaining movies, but they're different, and that's fine. However, hopefully that this will somehow find a place in the middle. That we have a lot more that we can do in terms of the CGI and all of that good stuff. But at the same time, we haven't totally abandoned the personal aspects of the process. That these people have profound thoughts, and they are profoundly involved emotionally in the story, and as consequently, they bring the audience into it as well to that degree. So that's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that we're going to fill a kind of a void. We've kind of leapt from old time storytelling in the TV and even in the movies to a giant step into the future with J.J. Abrams stories. And now, this is my simplistic way of thinking, but I'm hoping that we can make that leap not quite as gigantic, to find the place in between where we service both kinds of ideas.